And one of the things that you said in your information here that you provided was that the dangers of ESG include promoting gender transitions for children. And I want to know, do you really believe that garbage?
It's not about a believing, it's a matter of fact.
But it feels like every single hearing that I am in, whether it is in oversight or whether it is in budget or whether it is in a subcommittee, somehow the witnesses find a way to bring in trans children into whatever conversation we're trying to have here.
We are here today because the President of the United States is failing to fulfill his duty to defend our country, to defend the borders of the United States, as required by the Constitution. Now, I've read and heard and I'm aware of the academic arguments about the definition of invasion, and I'm sure we'll cover that in the hearing today. But the reality of those of us living on the front lines, the reality of those of us who live in Texas, Arizona, and states along the border, that notwithstanding any protestations to the contrary, we are experiencing an invasion at the southern border.
Let's talk about invasion. Let's talk about the invasion of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, when the heart of American democracy was attacked by a mob, many of them violent, of then President Trump's supporters who fought to keep him in power illegally. So you have to forgive me. You gotta give me a little grace here for not being able to take this hearing seriously. This hearing, as we've said, is an absurd legal argument. The Constitution is clear. The federal government is supreme in matters of immigration and border policy. And with all due respect to Chairman Roy, I believe that his call for Texas to ignore the Supreme Court is an endorsement of lawlessness and chaos.
The fact is, socialism doesn't work any better here than everywhere else in the world has been tried. And as Margaret Thatcher famously warned, sooner or later you run out of other people's money. When we cut taxes under Trump, our revenues did not go down, they went up because of the economic expansion that they produced. The Democrats had never understood that. Truman did, Kennedy did, but these guys don't. Until we control our spending, we are not going to solve this problem. And that's going to require members of Congress to pronounce the most abhorrent word in all of Washington, the unspeakable word, the dreaded and forbidden N-word. No. No, we can't afford to support 5 million illegal aliens that the Democrats have allowed into our country.
Now, I talked to a lot of Vermonters like all Americans, and they love their freedoms, and they want us to be fighting for fairness. I hear these two things probably more than anything. They want a fair shot. They want to know that they're not getting gouged while others continue to grow their great wealth. They want tax fairness. They want us to ensure that the wealthy and corporations pay their fair share. This does not make them socialists. We know that increasing enforcement of tax collection raises revenue and benefits our economy. And Americans overwhelmingly support these measures. This, again, does not make them socialists. I mention this because my colleague earlier in this hearing brought up the hackneyed, tired specter of socialism. I urge us to be more intellectually honest here. Wanting freedom and fairness does not make one a socialist.
The American people have to know that the blanket truth is this: there will be pain. There will be hardship. So every time we lock aside another program, another benefit into mandatory spending, shame on us. Shame on us. And so all of us need to be operating in truth. The American people have to have the truth. We have to make sure the American people know the facts, that the pain is coming. Medicare, Social Security within 10 years insolvency, the pain is coming. And the midnight ride for us is to educate the American people so that we'll make the choice of sacrificing, not the sacrifice being forced upon us. Now, with that, I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I disagree that everything should be on the table. There are some things that should absolutely not be on the table. And that's because the wealth gap in this country is obscene. I cannot and will not support cuts to Social Security, to Medicare, to nutrition programs for children and young families, for veterans benefits, for disability insurance. These programs provide vital support to regular people and improve not just our nation's economy, but the well-being of the democracy. And they offer Americans a lifeline from crushing, grinding poverty.
College campuses are supposed to be places where people can discuss ideas, including foreign policy, with civility and with the goal of understanding different perspectives and learning from their peers. This sort of environment is only possible when harassment, discrimination, and behavior that seeks to silence, intimidate, and dehumanize is not allowed.
I also had to pick my jaw off the floor when one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle bemoaned the use of dehumanizing language on college campuses, because I have not forgotten what was said in a fear-mongering hearing on the dangers of trans Americans, right here in this committee. It was a hearing full of dehumanizing language. It made me sick, and as the only member of the LGBTQ community on this committee, I've not forgotten.
Now, as American families continue to struggle under rampant inflation, increased energy costs, and an economy on the verge of recession, a subset of financial elites and their allegiance to environmental, social, and governance, or rather ESG investing, are making matters worse. S standards force companies to engage in controversial political issues, such as campaigns to defund the police or promoting gender transitions in children, cultivating division in the workplace and the marketplace. It makes the realization of the American dream contingent on acquiescing to the demands of the woke left.
And so I just wanted to go through some of the language that was used by some of the witnesses earlier. We've got words like infiltrated, weaponized, collusion, cartel-like, conspiracy. What else do we got here? Forced compliant, climate cartel, wrecking ball, coercive. Yeah, these are really neutral terms. We even had anti-American and anti-capitalist, driving the woke capitalism. These are not neutral terms. These are not neutral terms. So, like my colleagues have said, this is a colossal waste of time. We've already been here before. We've already established that if we in fact believe that we live in a free society and we have the opportunity to make investments, we should have all the information that we need to make those investments, and we should not be interfering with that. You believe that investing strategies are actually a secret, it's weaponized to support and promote gender transition for children. I just want to, is essentially that what you're saying, or do you just use it as another opportunity to beat up on children? So do you believe this?
I'm not the one beating up on children. It's the people who are promoting gender transitions in children that are potentially harming them.
Well, so let me tell you,
if I could,
let me tell you where I was, where I stepped out. And this is why I'm bringing it up. I stepped out to sit down with parents of trans kids from states that have come after their kids, and now their kids can't get the level of care that they deserve and need. And they literally said, when you leave this room, could you please, the next time you're in a room with someone bringing up yet again our children and our families as some kind of boogeyman, that you will actually stand up for us. And literally, I didn't think it would take less than a half hour. I left that hearing, here I am. I didn't know I would have such an opportunity. And all I will say before I finish is, if you are a parent or you know parents that you love, I want you to think really carefully about whether you think those parents are making decisions for their children that are not in their children's best interest. That's what we're talking about here. I don't think it has any place in this hearing on investments to once again be beating up on Americans and their children. I yield back my time. The evidence is overwhelming, and yet many, many Republican members of the House not only continue to deny the truth, but still will not admit that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. This includes our current House Speaker, who even as recently as several weeks ago refused to affirm that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and is the legitimate president of our nation. The Speaker of the House. And it includes another member of GOP House leadership who has taken to calling those imprisoned for their illegal actions on January 6th hostages. Hostages. They attacked our very democracy, and yet they are the victims? It's morally bankrupt. This is not only a sick, twisted perversion of the truth, it's also deeply offensive to Americans across this country. What my extreme MAGA Republican colleagues and their apologists are doing is perpetrating a deeply cynical, psychological manipulation. They tell us we can't trust our own eyes, that the men and women in uniform here at the Capitol were not battered and bloodied by the mob. They tell us that it's not true that members and their staff were hiding in fear for their safety, that it's not true that Democrats and Republicans on that day knew that they were in danger, and that the president, who incited the riot and the invasion and the insurrection, they knew this truth. And they said on that day, we're done with this guy. We know the role that he played. We're done with this guy. They knew his role, they saw it up close, and then they backpedaled and apologized for Trump and spread misinformation. So I find this offensive as a public official who has sworn to uphold the Constitution, but it's also deeply concerning as an American who cares deeply about this country and the Constitution. I am a thoughtful and committed public servant. Yes, we need a secure border. Yes, we need humane border policy. We need immigration reform. We need more legal pathways for migrants to work. Yes, we are a deeply divided Congress, and we must work in a bipartisan manner to actually solve the immigration issues that have plagued us for decades. And yet, that's not what this hearing is about. And it's worse than a distraction. It's worse than a waste of time. It's actually an insult to Americans everywhere. Right now, senators, Republicans, and Democrats are working on a compromise immigration bill. Right now, the president has said that he is prepared to sign a bipartisan immigration bill. Right now, the president has said he will put an additional $14 billion into securing the border. What has been the response from my Republican colleagues in the House? No. The response is no. Trump doesn't want it, so we don't want it. We don't want a solution. We don't want to alleviate suffering. We don't want to actually secure the border. So you have to give me some grace. You got to forgive me for not believing the calls for this being such an emergency. A bipartisan group in the Senate says, we have a solution. The MAGA response has been, let's keep the chaos, we're good. Let's keep the suffering, we're good. This supposed extreme danger doesn't seem so extreme as I sit in this hearing because it's not good for the ex-president. So again, forgive me for not taking this hearing seriously. Our Republican colleagues have made it clear repeatedly that they will not work in a bipartisan manner on actual immigration reform. I yield back.
It's not just the public debt, the publicly held debt. It's the insolvencies within Medicare and Social Security. And so if you take the 30+ trillion in publicly held debt and you add the 75-year sustainability for Medicare and Social Security, even after the 1983 fix, we find ourselves, according to the Treasury report under the Biden administration, we're at $124 trillion. That's the real size of our indebtedness. We have an unsurmountable problem because of our selfishness and because we pretend, we love to talk about the size of these problems. We love to cite the numbers, but line upon line and precept upon precept, $1 million here, $1 million there, authorized, not with a revenue stream to pay for it. The question I have to ask myself every day, am I operating in hypocrisy? Am I voting on things that I know is adding to this problem, or am I being true?
Ms. Balint, I yield 3 minutes to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The aim of the Fiscal Commission is, broadly speaking, I think, a noble effort. I think we all understand that crushing debt and massive deficits aren't healthy for the U.S. economy or for the democracy as a whole. As a parent, I, of course, worry about what this will mean for my children. And as the former leader of the Vermont State Senate, I understand the importance of working with colleagues across the aisle to pass balanced budgets that funded our state government every year. We found ways to do that that required compromise, hard work, late nights, and I still welcome the opportunities with my Republican colleagues to address our nation's real challenges. But we already have the tools that we need. There are already solutions that work. And the chair said that this proposed commission, that in this commission, everything's on the table. And therein, for me, lies the problem. Nearly 67 million Americans depend on Social Security for benefits, and it's frankly indefensible that right now in homes across our nation, there are elders who are trying to make the decision between medication, food, housing. We should be talking about strengthening Social Security, and it should not be on the table. Now, I talked to a lot of Vermonters, like all Americans, and they love their freedoms. And they want us to be fighting for fairness. I hear these two things probably more than anything. They want a fair shot. They want to know that they're not getting gouged while others continue to grow their great wealth. They want tax fairness. They want us to ensure that the wealthy and corporations pay their fair share. This does not make them socialists. We know that increasing enforcement of tax collection raises revenue and benefits our economy. And Americans overwhelmingly support these measures. This, again, does not make them socialists. I mention this because my colleague earlier in this hearing brought up the hackneyed, tired specter of socialism. I urge us to be more intellectually honest here. Wanting freedom and fairness does not make one a socialist. Let's get serious about closing the wealth gap. I don't feel this commission will do that. Let's focus on what the majority of Americans want, which is freedom and tax fairness. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The gentlelady from Vermont is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be honest that many parts of this hearing have been extremely difficult to listen to. My grandfather, Leopold Balint, was murdered in the Holocaust, and my family has warned me my entire adult life that anti-Semitism is always lurking just below the surface. And we are seeing that today in stark relief in this nation, but also around the world. And so it's been personally difficult for me to sit through this, that here we are again. Here we are again. Now, it's been a long hearing, so I'm going to just cut to the chase here. In these situations, it's best to just follow the money. Not the rhetoric, not the messaging, not the talking points, just follow the money. So, there is a clear policy solution to combating the rise of anti-Semitism and other abhorrent discrimination on college campuses, and that is to fully fund the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. Budgets, when you are in government, budgets are a statement of your values. How we spend money demonstrates what we really care about. And we should care about the rise in hateful speech and dehumanizing language in America generally, and specifically, as is the topic of this hearing, on college and university campuses. Fear-mongering and hateful speech isn't just destroying our communities, it's actually tearing this nation apart. And so we all have a part in that as well, all of us in Congress. So we can point fingers at college campuses, we can point fingers at what's happening in our elementary schools, but I would also say we have a part in that too, in putting an end to it. Now, it's my understanding that the Office of Civil Rights has already had a reported dramatic increase in Title VI discrimination claims in the wake of the terrorist attack on October 7th. Yet many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have proposed a significant funding cut to OCR. The Office of Civil Rights is one of the largest federal civil rights agencies in the country. It has over 500 staff who serve as attorneys, investigators, support staff. So it's been underfunded for years. And when it's underfunded, people who have cases, people who have claims, the staff's not there to do the investigation, to do the follow-up. So I would ask us to put our money where we say our values are. Now, a cut that has been proposed to the tune of reducing from $131 million to $105 million, that is a significant cut. It will have a detrimental impact on the ability of OCR to do its vital work. So again, I urge us all, follow the money. It seems like we are in a lot of agreement here on the things that are making us very uncomfortable. The antidote to speech we don't like is more speech. It's not shouting people down. It's not talking louder. It's not dehumanizing language. It is engaging in meaningful conversations when we have disagreements. It's that simple. So let's fund the office that is dedicated to making sure we're dealing with discrimination on college campuses. So I have 33 seconds. In that time, Ms. Burdett, can you just tell me what would be the ramifications if we were to cut from $131 million down to 105? Just really quickly, just give us a list of what's going to happen if that happens.
We know that when hate crime victims and students like these have no place to call, of course, that's a secondary victimization. It means the law enforcement can't respond to you. It means you have no recourse. Why would we take that away? If we are having a hearing, this isn't the PTA that has other tools. This is a House Judiciary Committee where I think we should look at what are the tools available. And we know where we have data about hate, and the Civil Rights, Office of Civil Rights does data collection on what's happening in schools. Data, government's not a university. We collect data because when we know what's happening, we can intervene. We can put resources there. And if we're not here to talk about how the federal government can make my boy safer, then we could be at a PTA meeting or at another kind of organization meeting. And so the budget is a moral document. And I'm even saying it's not enough to have investigators. Can we please invest in interrupting it before it happens? Not a single family of a victim of the Tree of Life shooting feels better that someone was punished. They'd rather have their brother back.
Thank you so much. I yield back.